I think we'll start off with Enrique, and then you all can kick it off. If one of you wants to raise your hand at some point because you want to jump in, please do.
Hi, I'm Enrique Menendez, and I'm a Latina with the disease of HIV. Happy Latin Heritage Month to all you Latinas out there. I identify as a person with the disease of HIV because I believe I'm a spiritual being living in this human experience, and I'm not my disease, and my disease is not me. For me, faith has changed a lot throughout my lifetime. I grew up, my dad was born in Mexico City. His dad was Spanish and his mom was Mexican. My mom was born in Paris. Her father was French. Her mother was Flemish. And I grew up with Catholicism. I went to Catholic high school, grade school. I did First Communion and confirmation. And even my first 2 years of college were in Catholic school. And the higher power that I learned about, God that I learned about through Catholicism, was very judgmental of my sexual orientation. I'm gay, and I was taught I was an abomination and had a lot of guilt and shame about that. And I truly believe that HIV is a direct result of my shame and guilt of my sexual orientation. Now, having HIV, I've had it for 32 years. And I feel like HIV has had shame and guilt behind it also. And the way I dealt with that was through addiction. And I'm also in recovery. So I'm a person with the disease of addiction, and I go to 12-step meetings. And today for me, spirituality means meditating. I meditated last night to go to sleep. I meditated this morning. I try to work the 12 steps of the recovery program. I go to meetings, fellowship. I go to therapy. I play sports. I'm creative. I'm an actor. I've done some Broadway television and film. And for me, creativity is another connection for me to my higher power. That's all I have right now.
Thanks, Tabitha.
Well, Jahira and Tabitha, I feel very validated that although our experiences and lives are very different, our upbringing showed us shunning by religion. And, I'm sure some people have heard the saying before, religion is for those who fear heaven and hell, and spirituality is for those who have been to both. So I definitely believe that. And also, although I heard you may not have HIV, I believe you are affected by HIV. You may not be infected, but you are affected by it, right? And HIV has been a really tough journey for me. I mean, working in the Broadway industry, I've lost close to like 60, 70 friends. And sometimes I have survivor's guilt about that, but I just got to keep trudging along and staying tenacious and living in the moment and in the day, so. But I thank you, Tabitha and Jahira, for sharing your truth with me.
Enrique and then Tabitha.
Yes, so currently I work as a standardized patient, so I teach medical students how to show more empathy and be better communicators. And yesterday I was at New York Medical College teaching some of my students, and during the sexual questions, they kept saying the word safe sex. And it really got underneath my skin because there is no safe sex except for abstinence or masturbation, right? So I said to the educator, I said, could we talk to the students about using the word safer sex? Because for me, safe sex has a negative connotation to it. It brings up the feelings of when I was identified as diseased or, tarnished with HIV. And that's so not true. Because PrEP is safer sex. I'm undetectable. If I have sex with someone who's on PrEP, I cannot pass on the virus to that person sexually. It's just not possible. And it's really interesting, the progression of the disease in HIV through the 32 years, how it's changed, because in the beginning it was a death sentence. And then I had medications, and then we got protease inhibitors, and that made it more manageable. And now there's PrEP, and undetectable equals untransmittable. It's a whole new world. So I'm just grateful to still be here to experience it. For me, I try to keep the focus on myself and speak from my experience, but also I try to learn the language of the person I'm speaking to. And I ask them questions. I try not to tell what people what to do. So what came up to my head when Tabitha and Jahira were speaking about medications and stuff, you know, if I look at my own journey, when I was spiritually connected, when I was dealing with my higher self, my higher power, connected to God, HP, the source, as some people call him, I take my medications. I'm very adherent, right? When I was in my addiction and checked out of life and not connected to my higher self, I didn't take my medications. So because of that, my virus has mutated a lot, and I'm on actually 4 different HIV medications, you know? So, but that was just my path, and you know, it is what it is, right? So.
Right. And, you know, thanks for sharing that, Enrique, because your experience is helping others already, has helped others, and will continue to. I'm wondering if any of you could go back in time and kind of speak to your younger self, or each other's younger selves, if you don't see yourself speaking to yourself, like what would be the message you would give them from today, from your, you know, your standpoint, knowing you have, you know, have HIV or have worked with HIV or took PrEP to avoid having HIV, and you know, faith in your faith journey. And Enrique, since you have your hand up, let's start with you.
I would say to my younger self, you are a beautiful soul. And no matter what happens in your lifetime, any disease, any trauma, anything that is first comes off as negative to you, it will be a gift and a lesson in your life. And I would say to Tabitha and Jahira, you are beautiful beings, and I respect you, I see you, and I hear you.
Enrique, go ahead.
Sure, I'd love to. After hearing Tabitha and Jahira speak, it reminded me about my own journey and how HIV is a gift. It taught me how to love. Recovery is a gift. It taught me how to reconnect with my higher power. I was assaulted last year. I'm an assault survivor. That is a gift, because I've changed from being a victim to a survivor. And when I'm spiritual and connected, the quicker I could turn around my victimization to survivor, and my sponsor and I came up with this term because my recovery hasn't been like consecutive, but I've had long chunks of time, right? So I used to identify as a chronic relapser, but for me, that means glass half empty. Now I identify as a tenacious recoverer, because that's glass half full, you know? And it's all about how how I identify and look at myself. And the more I can lift myself up and become a survivor and not a victim, the happier I can be. And I believe that's where happiness lies. I want to thank Reverend Reina for doing your Spanish ministry. I think it's really important. I want to thank Father Lewis for all the condoms that you've blessed. And also, I'm really sorry for the losses that you experienced in your family due to HIV. And I'd like to thank Dr. Bruce for talking about the taboo and bringing less shame to it. You know, what motivated me, came to my mind from after hearing the 3 of you speak was, one of my character defects is self-righteous indignation. I allowed my mom to project hers onto me. I allowed the church to project that onto me. And it's something I struggle with and I work on day by day. I'm not perfect by any means, but I recognize it now. And I don't allow people to do that anymore, right? I also heard you talk about the plague. I forgot if it was Father Lewis or Reverend Bruce. You talked about the plague. Last year, COVID was devastating to me in some ways. In some ways, it was great. The first 6 months, I was really good. I ended up having a relapse. During that relapse, I was assaulted. I think I was triggered because in the past, I had PCP pneumonia as a person with HIV. And I had a breakthrough infection of COVID, even though I had my vaccine, I had a breakthrough infection. And I think it brought me a little bit of PTSD back to that day when I had PCP pneumonia and almost died, you know? But I don't have judgment or against myself anymore for that. And I'm grateful for that. And I thank you all for your work. It's really important. And it's so nice to hear you all. Thanks.
Enrique, por favor.
Thanks. In closing, I want to thank everyone for being here. I definitely feel spirit. I feel higher power. I feel God, whatever you want to identify as. My greatest line that I'm going to take home with me, I wrote it down, is I'm not here to save souls. I'm here to save lives. Yesterday, someone said to me, "You only die once." I said, "No, that's not true." Or "You only live once." I said, "No, that's not true. You only die once." We live every day, and I hope you guys all live a wonderful and